Call to order City Commission meeting of Monday, May 1st, 2017. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. First thing we'll deal with, Mr. Kessel, the order of business. Are there any changes to the order of business?
President Decker, I have three requested changes. The elimination of both our 510 and 525 timetable agenda items. And I believe you have an item that's labeled 4C, Elder Care Contract. We've been requested by Elder Care to postpone this one more commission meeting. So it would be the elimination of those three items.
Okay. I think on the electronic, we have 4C.
Okay.
You're correct, but the paper, what we have, it is removed.
Okay.
So, okay.
Those would be my suggested changes.
Okay, those are the three changes. Any questions for Mr. Kessel or concerns? Not.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have, or the order of business.
The order of business.
Okay,
Yep.
we have a
Just being
motion to
efficient.
approve the order of business.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. All right, the consent agenda. Are there anything on the consent agenda that commissioners are concerned with? Any questions for staff on the consent agenda? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have one timetable at 5 o'clock, Sunrise Youth Bureau. So we'll start with the non-timetable. First thing up, Mr. Kessel, civil service recommendation regarding Joan Koenig.
Thank you, President Decker. As you all are aware, we had a civil service hearing regarding Mrs. Koenig and her position with the City of Dickinson. The Civil Service Commission made recommendations as part of that decision-making process. Those recommendations have been provided to you, and they are threefold. The first one is that that she be paid back wages. The second one is that she be reimbursed the cost of providing records, and the third one is attorney's fees. So I'll address these just one by one and try to give you a little bit more detail in regard to each of those. Not a lot, but some. The first one is the with regarding back pay. She's requesting back pay till I believe February 1st. The doctor's note that we received on the end of March indicated that she was able to work as of February 1st. So there seems to be, we're not quite sure what to do in terms of back pay with that month that is being requested. I don't believe she worked at all during that month, and found out afterwards that the doctor did an exam and said she was eligible, backdating it to February 1st. So, you know, I'm not sure how to go about paying her for back wages in that scenario. So I would need your insights into how to deal with that record, if at all. The second one is securing records. We simply responded to the requests of the attorneys in this regard. We did try to minimize costs by providing electronic records whenever possible, but the majority of the cost to us was actually staff time in trying to provide those records. There was several that were requested, and so it just took some time in order to provide those. State law allows us to provide a invoice or a bill after the first hour. So the first hour of staff time is free, and any time that it takes to deal with a open records request is then time we can charge for.
Mr. Kessel, on this, on what we have in front of us, we don't have a price for that anywhere, I don't think. Or is that under the attorney fees?
I think it's under the attorney's fees. You have the cost for the fees. In terms of
the photocopying?
Yeah, it was around $700, $750, if I'm not mistaken.
And the $229 for the?
It was they're requesting $750 or abouts, but our cost was $229, I think. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right on that page. Thank
Okay.
you.
So photocopying 784 plus the 229.
Thank you. Yes, it's right on the, yep.
Okay.
Right, right. So the cost would be 229. They in turn made photocopies for the case that equated to $784.40. And then the final thing is attorney's fees of $25,882.50. You know, our code does not indicate you need to hire an attorney. It is a personal decision to do so. And as we all know, when you hire an attorney, there's going to be a bill. There's very few, and I'll let Ms. Kripe discuss this, but there's very few instances where attorney's fees being paid by opposing counsel are recoverable in a lawsuit. There's a very strict body of law. In fact, if we would ever take property, that is one of those circumstances where we have to pay all the attorney's fees for the opposing side. And Ms. Kripe, I don't know if you have others you can cite to the commission, but.
There's limited instances where statutes provide that for that specific law, a party can recover attorney's fees. Other than that, there's an opportunity for recovery under certain rules of civil procedure if frivolous claims are made or if there's frivolous pleadings. But those are very limited circumstances. So from my personal practice, whenever we meet with clients, you know, we always tell them don't expect to recover your attorney's fees if it's not specifically provided by law. And again, very limited.
Thank you, Ms. Kripe. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Kessel or Ms. Kripe?
Ms. Kripe, as our city attorney, would you suggest that any of the requests are something the commission should answer to?
Well, I'll tell you what I always tell you. It's not my, I'm only here to offer the facts and I'm not here to make policy. But, you know, I would concur with what City Administrator Kessel has described, that it's limited circumstances where attorney fees are recoverable in civil actions. I don't think that there was any frivolous arguments in this, so I don't think that that would pertain. And the code does say that you're allowed to have an attorney, but there's no provision in the city code for the city paying the attorney's fees in the event of even a successful outcome. So,
is there any precedent that pays for open records requests?
I think in the memo I mentioned, in the last request, for example, Mrs. Goss made her open records requests, and she did not ask for those to be reimbursed as part of her claim, I don't believe, and the city did not reimburse those. So those were paid without comment in the last round. So the precedent is that we charge them.
Can you give more background to the civil service recommendation on back wages?
That was one they struggled with on how to word that, I think, and how to implement, because as City Administrator Kessel identified, the leave that was requested by Ms. Koenig, it would have taken her through the end of January, and then it's assumed that she would have gone back to work in February had she not been going through the civil service process. And so when Mr. Kessel said that she probably wasn't working, she definitely was not working at that point because she was in the middle of the civil service procedures. So the note we got from the doctor saying that she was medically cleared, again, that examination happened after the civil service hearing. So it's hard from a timeline perspective to say, had that examination occurred on February 1, would the conclusions have been the same? But the doctor's note says that she was medically cleared as of February 1.
What was the date the doctor said that she would be cleared?
The doctor said I don't know the date of the doctor's letter. It was sometime mid to end of March, and the doctor's letter says February 1 is when.
So we're assuming somewhere at the end of March, the doctor said she'd been okay going back to February 1.
Right, that's my understanding of the letter from the medical professional.
So what is the timeline for the back pay? From when to when, exactly?
It would be from February 1 until she actually did go back to work following the civil service hearing. I believe that's roughly 2 months, probably.
We don't have an exact date on that,
I know she started as soon as she was,
reinstated.
right. She went in, I believe, very shortly thereafter. So I'm just trying to look at my calendar for when that hearing occurred.
We can get the payroll dates
Yeah.
as well.
No,
That's a matter of record.
What I'd like to do, handle these one at a time, and this time, handle this one that we're talking about now. I would make the recommendation that we pay her going back to February 1. We could make this decision saying the day of the doctor's letter, but I'm not a doctor, and I think the doctor says she'd been okay according to her records and so on, going back to the February 1, I would take that as a pretty good date.
Ms. Kripe, it's okay that we separate these?
Yes,
Recommendations?
you can
Okay.
act as you see fit.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to back pay.
Well, I would make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to back pay Ms. Koenig to February 1, correct? With a second. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Kessler or Ms. Kripe?
Is the commission intending that, just to be clear for finance, that's assuming full-time status from February 1?
Is she hourly or salary?
They're hourly, so.
So we're going to assume then the 40-hour work week, typical work week.
That's for you to determine. We're just
Right,
asking
okay.
so we know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So, Mr. Steiner, your motion would
I would
be
include
for-
that, yes.
Okay. For the reimbursement of full wages for backdated to February 1. So we have that motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions?
I have another question.
Yes.
Are you also wanting city staff to accompany the benefits? So, PTO accruals, health insurance reimbursements, the 401k, if there's any I don't know if that's been an election or not, but I'm just trying to go through the benefits. And
Let me restate it, that we put her back to February 1 with all benefits, salary,
Okay.
vacation, everything that.
Full
it-
benefits and
it-
salary.
Full benefits.
Okay.
Okay.
So just as if she had been working as of February 1.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure so we have a clear motion for finance when they go.
We're gonna acknowledge that she, full-time February
Okay.
1, we gotta acknowledge she.
Okay.
she's medical.
Right.
Ms. Jennings, you're still good with your
Yes.
second? Okay. Any other questions? Right?
I'm good, thank you.
Good? Mr. Kessel? Okay. Commissioners?
Good.
Good.
All right. So we'll vote on the motion. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Reimbursing the cost of securing the records, which I read in here should be the 200 that we charged her. Be the 229.25.
Plus photocopying of 784.40.
Now, is the photocopying a separate bill from,
My understanding is that's the total from the attorney's bills when they photocopied the records provided by the city. And then the 229.25 is what was billed from the city. That's the only amount that we billed out.
So the 784 they're not asking for.
I believe they're asking for that as part of the attorney's
attorney
fees.
fees?
Okay, so we'll hold off until the attorney sees with that. Okay.
Okay, so that would be the 229.25 would be the second phase of this recommendation, be it reimbursed cost of securing the city records. Any questions? So I would look for either a motion to approve that or disapprove reimbursement of the cost.
Mr. President, I move we do not reimburse for securing records of 229.25.
We have a motion to not reimburse. Anyone second?
Second.
And we have a motion, a second on this motion. Any further discussions or questions?
Yeah, discussion or comment is, we have never reimbursed for any records out of our office. if we do, I would consider it a cost of taxpayers' money, which they did not intend to be spent in this way. We didn't request the records, they requested the records as part of a lawsuit, so I do not think we owe that.
Maybe,
Mr. President,
yes.
the only thought I have on that is she wouldn't have needed to request them if she wasn't unlawfully terminated. Would she have? According to their finding?
But she filed the lawsuit, therefore needed, so if she doesn't file a lawsuit, there's no expense, she filed a
She
lawsuit.
doesn't need to file a lawsuit though if we don't terminate her, so.
But it was her right to file that lawsuit. Okay. I don't think you get everything back when you initiate a lawsuit.
So, just for a point of clarification, in litigation, parties don't typically charge each other for discovery. That's something that you're just required to do by the civil procedure. If there's third parties that you request documents from, you can have charges incurred that way. But this isn't a lawsuit, and it's not subject to the rules of civil procedure. It's just subject to city code. So it's just a civil service. It's more, it's more akin to an administrative hearing, if anything. But again, it's kind of its own situation under city code and not the same rules as a lawsuit. So just for information and clarification.
Ms. Craig, do you know, is there any similar cases in the state of North Dakota that have been similar to this, or that we've had someone seek reimbursement for attorney fees due to civil service hearing?
I do not know if there are any. I haven't done any research on that, so I can't say.
Okay, we still have the motion to not reimburse the $229.25 with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
No.
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. We will not reimburse for records. Item 3 then, the reimbursement of attorney's fees incurred in contesting her termination. Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Kessel, Ms. Kripe from commissioners?
Mr. President, I see Commissioner Friedrich's point that he's making, and this would not be here today had we not terminated Mrs. Koenig. I would really like to see what has happened throughout the state, if there's any similar cases. I know this is a large sum of money, and I'm just not comfortable completely making that decision, having not seen what other people have done in similar situations. But that's, of course, at the discretion of the board.
Ms. Kripe, can you walk us back through the timeline one more time of when civil service reached their decision, what recourse she would have had at that point short of hiring an attorney, and could this have been resolved without that? Can you just walk through those steps?
So at the time of her termination, she had a 5-day window, and that was, I believe her termination was in early January. And then she had a 5-day or 5 business day window to make the appeal to civil service. And then under the city code, employees are not required to have an attorney represent them, but they can at their election. And then Ms. Koenig made the election, and I believe I think the hearing was on February 14th, the initial hearing. And then there was a follow-up roughly 2 weeks later where they rendered their decision and the findings of fact.
So after civil service had made their decision, she had a 5-day appeal period. And
So civil service made their decision after she had a 5-day window to appeal the termination, and then that's when she hired her attorney to argue that at civil service for her. And then, so that's when I think all this kind of, so you can see on the bills, I think the first one was on January 5th. And so she had representation before and through civil service hearing, and then they made their determination roughly end of February, early March. So I have to look. But So that's where, again, city employees are not required to have attorneys. I don't know the history prior to my being here. Obviously, the last one didn't have her own attorney, so to speak, but was an attorney. And then the one prior that was scheduled was before my time, but I was told that they had scheduled it. There was no attorney of record. The employee was just going to argue for themselves, and then decided not to attend the hearing, which is a waiver. So, and that's as far back as I've heard for precedent.
Did civil service have an attorney on retainer that they used
Yes.
in this matter? So we hired an attorney to defend, to overlook the matter. I mean, it's a complicated matter. I don't know that any normal person dealing with FMLA and all the federal laws can look at this and defend themselves against us with, I mean, I have a hard time believing that an attorney wouldn't have been required almost. I mean, they might not have needed to, by code, hire one, but I mean, it's a complicated formula that most people don't even understand.
My take on it is that she initiated the lawsuit. She did not include attorney fees in it. She won the hearing, so she got her job back. She's getting back pay. I don't think we owe the attorney's fee for this. It's a tough situation, but then again, I think I'm speaking on behalf of the community and whether they would feel that we're responsible for her attorney fees. It's not required to have an attorney at a civil service hearing. So, I'm coming down on the side that I would deny the attorney fees.
I would agree with Mr. Friedrich that it is complicated. But at the same time, I'm concerned about, I guess, the whole process, that you would need to hire an attorney to get your job back, where this should be simpler. But and I am concerned with the cost too, the amount. So I guess I would look if there's any more comments, or I would look.
Ms. Kripe, walk me through this. If she obviously came back to the city commission meeting during that 5-day window, as she could have. She could have approached the city. She could have approached that meeting without an attorney, and if she had not liked the result of the findings there, then she still would have had more recourse, right?
Right.
So
Then she could have appealed to this board.
right. So she could have went through the civil process without an attorney, and which I think they're a very fair board, and I think that they listen to all sides of the story, and I think that they're in a unique position to look at the needs of the employee and the city, and weigh everything that's in there. They wouldn't have even brought this to their meeting if they didn't think there was something valid to look at. So she certainly had raised that awareness. So if in her first approach with them, and it's always easier to look back, I understand that. If she hadn't liked the result, she could have come back to the city commission and protested the results there, and just like it happened, we sent it back to that authority, and then they rendered a decision that was favorable to her. So they're not hiring an attorney. She wouldn't have given up all of her ability to come to the same conclusion.
She could have protested.
There would have been multiple opportunities for her to. And then if that had all gone totally awry and not in her favor, then that would be a point where you would probably consult with an attorney and say, boy, I think that I was treated unjustly by the department, by the civil service, by the city.
Right.
Again, you would have that recourse to approach an attorney at that point. It seems like jumping the gun to get the attorney involved so early in the process.
Ms. Craig, can you tell me what was a part of the final decision that was made of the civil service hearing? What did the board what was the evidence that they found where they really guided their decision to reinstate?
It was based on the calculation that was presented to them for FMLA days.
So it was a city mistake? Or was, I'm
Kind of.
asking for clarification.
Not a mistake. It was a decision, not a mistake.
No, the
The
calculation.
calculation of the FM.
I'm talking about the calculation.
So the actual calculation was different than the calculation that was presented to civil service. And the civil service calculation was incorrect. And it showed, I mean, the appeal window's over, so I mean, I can tell you it was miscalculated on the city's part, not showing enough days that were taken in FMLA. And so, based on the evidence and the rules that were agreed to by the parties, the city was not allowed to supplement the calculation that was used during the hearing. And based on that calculation, it looked like there was 1 day short, like as if the city had terminated 1 day prior.
So, Mr. President, so there goes back to my original argument. It's a complicated calculation that obviously somebody made an error, and that's what we do every day in HR. So how do we expect this person to make that calculation and defend herself? That's my question. And it's not a lawsuit, correct?
Right, not a lawsuit.
There's no lawsuit filed, it was just an appeal to civil service, and she chose to have counsel.
Correct.
I have a question. If, so this went to civil service, if we would have known that she was going to civil service and getting an attorney, and that we could be responsible for her attorney bill up to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, at that time, we would have had an opportunity to move this into another court, correct?
No, under the city code, the employee has the right to appeal first through civil service. And so we can't remove it from that because that's their right to have it at that level rather than go to court. Court's a lot, if this was a civil action to start, we'd, barely have a scheduling order in place probably. So they take a much longer period of time. Whereas civil service, we're guaranteed to have a resolution to the employee very quickly in terms of conflict resolution. So that's why it's the employee's right to have it at civil service as opposed to having to file a formal lawsuit. So they can actually have resolution within months instead of a year or more. So the city does not have the ability to remove it from that process.
Good.
Okay, then. Any more questions? Comments? I guess I would then look for a motion to either reimburse full, partial, or none. I would leave it up to the commissioner's discretion on what they would feel would be.
I do have one more question. Is this something that can be filed with their insurance?
Commissioner Friedrich, the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund is aware of this, whether or not they would pay. I don't believe they would pay attorney's fees. I don't believe any of this will be reimbursable from NDIRF. I can certainly seek
Even though,
clarification, but-
even though it's an HR issue that,
Yeah, I actually, now that you are asking that, we received correspondence from them regarding the actual litigated matter that's going on. And we're informed that while they'll pay through the attorney's fees, if there's any finding that the city will be liable.
for the, yeah.
You're talking the other case.
Right.
Right.
So I would be very surprised if they would pay for the other side's attorney's fees in this when they won't pay for even a judgment that would be awarded in the other case. So,
So it's highly unlikely.
I think each
Commissioner desire.
side assumes their own risk, is the way I'm looking at it. Obviously, I think she would assume that she would have some attorney fees if she brought this forward. You know, I'll grant it's a hefty amount of attorney fees, but again, that's not our decision.
I guess I would have one question for Ms. Kripe. Depending on the outcome of the decision tonight, is there any other recourse for Ms. Koenig?
as far as for these fees, I mean, it's possible there could be a lawsuit filed, whether or not there's valid basis for it.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you. Again, commission's desire.
I would still like to see what similar instances have, what similar cities have done in cases.
So your suggestion is to table this part of until Ms. Kripe can do some research, or,
Whatever decision we make,
okay,
we're making a precedent here. So I want to make sure that we do a little bit of background research into what similar cities have done, because the decision we make on this will be used in further cases if they so happen. So I would make a motion to table this so we can get a little more information.
I have a motion to table this until there's further research on the subject. Not hearing a second on that, then I would look for a motion again to either fully reimburse, partially reimburse, or not reimburse. Ms. Koenig.
Mr. President, I just have a hard time with, you know, the reason the city has the Civil Service Commission is because of these situations, and then we just sit here and they make a recommendation to us, and then we don't follow it. Is setting a precedent too, I think, in my mind. I just don't believe that Ms. Koenig would have had to incur any of this if we had not made a mistake in her calculation or whatever we used to decide to terminate her. So I have a hard time seeing how she's liable for it.
So is that a motion to reimburse?
So I'd make a motion to reimburse her for all of her attorney fees.
We have a motion to reimburse complete attorney fees.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion or questions for council? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
No.
Mr. Steiner?
No.
Chair votes no. That is, takes care of all that. Am I correct, Ms. Kripe? Okay, we do have a 5 o'clock. Sorry we went a little long. Ms. Prowse?
Good afternoon, City Commissioners. I am Holly Prowse. I'm the Director of Sunrise Youth Bureau. And this is Amber Hofstad. She's the Youth Advisor. We were just asked to give you guys a little overview of our annual report, which we did send out. Did everybody receive that?
Yes.
Okay. So I just have a little information I would like to share with you guys this evening. On behalf of the Sunrise Youth Bureau Board and myself, we would like to thank the City Commissioners for their support. The Sunrise Youth Bureau will use the City of Dickinson funding to help assist with our current programming, which includes diversion, intervention, education, prevention, out-of-school suspension, and our attendant care program. The diversion program is where we receive referrals from juvenile court. In this program, the juvenile and a parent come to Sunrise to meet with the youth advisor, which would be Amber. The juvenile is counseled on what they did to get into trouble with the law and are given appropriate consequences. The goal of this program is to try to keep youth out of the juvenile justice system while still giving the youth consequences for their actions. We also provide crisis intervention for families in conflict. If a parent is having trouble with their child, they can contact us before it gets to the point of them getting into trouble with the law. Our education prevention program is where the youth educator goes out into the 8 county schools and does prevention programming in the classrooms. Some of the topics covered are bullying, respect and rules, drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. Classes can also be administered at the Sunrise Youth Bureau as a consequence for a juvenile that gets into trouble or are having problems at home or school. Referrals for classes can come from the youth advisor, juvenile court, social services, school officials, or a parent referral. Out-of-school suspension is a program that the school can utilize for misbehaving youth. Staff work with the youth to make sure their homework is complete. Once their homework is complete, the youth works on educational materials related to the reason why they got into trouble in the first place. Attendant care program is where we house youth at Sunrise. The youth can be placed by law enforcement or social services. The Sunrise Youth Bureau is a safe place for the youth to stay until further arrangements are made. We have part-time on-call staff that do the attendant care program. These programs are vital to our community. We assist with troubled youth and their families, as well as provide education and prevention programming to younger youth to help prevent future issues. We help assist our local law enforcement and social service agencies. If the Sunrise Youth Bureau did not exist, who would provide these programs? We are the only attendant care facility in western North Dakota. We have 9 attendant care sites in North Dakota. The other 2 closest to us are in Bismarck and Williston. Where would juveniles go if we did not have a site at the Youth Bureau? Our other funding sources include the 8 counties that we provide services to, as well as Mercer County that we just provide the attendant care program to, United Way funding, Southwest District Juvenile Court, Class Bs, out-of-school suspension program, miscellaneous donations, and drug kits. The cost of running the Youth Bureau increases every year due to the increased cost of running a business, which includes salaries, insurance, retirement, taxes, and the other basic costs. Some of our services we provide have also increased from 2015 to 2016. Diversion has an increase of 9 juveniles seen. Sunrise Youth Bureau classes had an increase of 32 juveniles seen with an increase of 28 classes done. Educational classes, which are done in the schools, had an increase of 84 classes. We know with an increase of service also comes an increase to the cost of our agency. We hope that the city commissioners understand how vital the Sunrise Youth Bureau is to our community and the surrounding communities. A question is always asked, how many juveniles out of the Starr County numbers are the city of Dickinson juveniles? Here is the answer. 92% of the numbers of out-of-school suspension and 97% of Sunrise Youth Bureau classes are from Dickinson. Out of the 51 for our attendant care program, 84% of those kids are from Dickinson. Out of the 68 for our diversion program, 85% of these kids are from Dickinson. Out of the 382 educational classes done, 90% were completed in the Dickinson schools. The total percentage for all the programming done in Starr County, 90% is working with the City of Dickinson youth. As you can see, we provide a lot of services right here in Dickinson. Again, we want to thank you for your support and ask that you continue to support us in the future. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Any questions for Ms. Prowse?
I would just like to thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm doing some math as you were going through, and it looks like in this last year, the City of Dickinson gave $11,250 to help your program. And with your 90% figure, I added up, and you've touched the lives of about 7,000 youth in this area, which is 6,300 here from Dickinson. For $2 a person, I think we're getting a lot of bang for our buck from what you guys do and the services that you provide. So
Well, thank you. I
thank you for
appreciate
that.
that. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Mr. Kessel?
Ms. Prowse, do you think that your services are going to be needed either more or less in the future? Could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing and trending and that type of thing?
Right, we're definitely seeing, I'm not sure about numbers, our numbers have seen it increased. We're seeing definitely more severe cases. We're seeing more kids with mental health issues. We're seeing more kids test positive for things like meth and heroin. I've been working at this job for the past 11 years, and when we first started, it was kids that were drinking. We've seen a lot of underage drinking youth, so the severity of kids that we're seeing is definitely on the rise. So I think that's definitely a concern. So that's why I think prevention is key, to get out into the schools and talk to the younger kids about these issues. You know, the average age we used to see back in the day was 16, 17. Now we're seeing 11, 12-year-olds. So there is definitely a change in the last 10 years that we are seeing.
Well, I think you guys are doing an outstanding job. And like Commissioner Altman said, we're getting a pretty good return on our dollar. So, any other comments, questions for Ms. Prowse? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I do have some brochures if you'd like me to leave these here
Okay,
somewhere.
yeah.
Sure.
Leave them with Ms. Binstock and she'll disperse them
Okay.
properly.
Thank you so much.
All right, we don't have a 510 or a 525 anymore, so then we'll go to our item B, which is the 2017 North Dakota Star Library Award. And Ms. Ennin, Library Director. How are you?
I'm great. President, Commissioners, thank you for having me here today. I'm very happy to tell you that our library has received an award, the 2017 North Dakota Star Library Award. This award was given to us by the North Dakota State Library. They take the statistics from libraries all around the state, compare libraries of like size, and we do fall into the category of the largest libraries in the state. And they compare those libraries on things like not just how many books were checked out, how many visitors did you have, how many people attended programs, how many people are using your computers and Wi-Fi, and also the percentage on which you meet of the North Dakota Library Coordinating Council standards. And based on that, we were listed as one of the top 3 libraries in Tier 5 for North Dakota libraries, and we're presented with this award, which I'd like to share with you.
Well deserved. I think you guys do an outstanding job there.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next up, we have item C is JD's Barbecue Amendment to Restaurant on Sales. Mr. Kessel?
Thank you, President Decker and Commission. This item, JD's Barbecue has an existing liquor license. What they want to do is add the ability to sell on Sundays. That is a no-cost addition to the license. They do have to collect hospitality tax, though, with this addition, and it does make them eligible to receive special use permits. So if they want to provide off-site liquor sales, they can upon making a request and going through our process. So with that, it is our recommendation to approve the amendment to the restaurant on sale liquor license for JD's Barbecue.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel on this application?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. We'll move on to the Southwest Water Proclamation. And I guess we have some guests here that, before I make the proclamation, that would like to speak.
Thank you. I'm Sandy Berwick from Southwest Water Authority, and I just wanted to thank you for supporting Drinking Water Week and for always supporting our project.
I'm Larry Bars from the Southwest Water Authority, the director for representing the city of Dickinson. And I do have some brochures to let you know where we're at the present time and what we have been doing. Can I leave those with,
Yes, leave them
Rita?
With Rita, she'll get them out to us, yes.
And again, we certainly appreciate everything the city of Dickinson does for us. As you know, Southwest Water Pipeline Project is a very unique, probably the most unique waterworks in the state of North Dakota. And we are the only ones who pay back in the form of capital repayment. And we have already paid back over $54 million. So we're real proud of that fact and working like the Dickens to keep the water rates as low as we can. So, and again, thanks for all
Appreciate
your
it.
cooperation and all you do for us.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you.
Well, I will read this proclamation and get to business here. City of Dickinson, North Dakota proclamation. Whereas Southwest Pipeline Project water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas Southwest Pipeline Project water delivers support for the city of Dickinson's economy, quality of life we enjoy, and whereas any measure of a successful society, economic growth and diversity, productivity, and public safety are related to quality water provided by the Southwest Pipeline Project and Southwest Water Authority. And whereas we are all stewards of the Southwest Pipeline Project water and the infrastructure maintained by Southwest Water Authority upon which future generations depend. And whereas each citizen of the city of Dickinson is called upon to help protect the Southwest Pipeline Project source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in water issues by getting to know their water. Whereas we support additional funding for Southwest Water Authority and their efforts to increase capacity of the Southwest Pipeline Project for Southwest North Dakota. Now, therefore, be it resolved that by virtue of authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Dickinson, I hereby proclaim May 7th through the 13th, 2017 as Drinking Water Week. And I would look for a motion to approve this proclamation.
So
So
moved.
move.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll sign off.
Mr. Mayor, just as a comment, I see the three over there, and I know all three of those people. I know the two guys for over 40 years. And for the life of me, the only thing that came to mind is that saying, a rose amongst two thorns.
Any other comments? Not, we'll move on. Next up is the Senior Citizens Grant. Mr. Kessel.
Thank you, President Decker. This year, we have a list of senior citizens' recommendations that we'd like to make. There was a group of 4 people, lay people, that arrived at these recommendations. We had multiple applications, and the recommendations that the board wants to make, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to go through them a little bit, just more for the public's awareness, so they understand how much money that we have returned to Southwest North Dakota. Just a meeting or two ago, you also approved the Southwest grants. Those amounts were around that $50,000 mark. We've been doing that for well over 10 years. Tonight, it's around $40,000, a little less. So that's almost $100,000 that we've returned to communities in Southwest North Dakota on an annual basis. So the first one is the Prairie Senior Citizens Club at Amadon. We are recommending $500 based on their recommendation. Golden Valley and Beach of $1,500. The Senior Citizens Activity Club in Belfield of $1,000. We also have up to another $4,000 in matching funds. They want to do an ADA entrance, and there is a grant that's available through Roosevelt Custer, and we're encouraging them to apply for that grant. We would cover half, and then the remainder could be covered by the Roosevelt Custer. Sodbusters Club in Bowman, $1,500. The Sunset Senior Center has indicated that they want to redo their kitchen, but they didn't give us any prices regarding that. We really try to stay away from operational expenses like insurance and things and try to do brick and mortar. And so we've asked for clarification. So we may come back with a further recommendation with regard to Sunset Senior Centers in here in Dickinson. Dodge Senior Citizens, $1,500. Halliday Senior Citizen Center, $1,000. The Second 40 Club in Hettinger, $1,143. Mott, the Cannonball Senior Club, $1,000. The New England Senior Citizens, $6,340. Prairie Pioneers in Reeder, $2,500. The Rame Pioneer Senior Citizens Club, $1,500. The Golden Miners in Scranton, $1,200. The South Heart Senior Center, $2,500. And the Taylor Senior Citizen Center of $4,000. And you'll notice that a lot of these are for upgrades to the physical structure, windows, siding, restrooms, things of that nature. So our goal is to keep seniors in their house as long as they can, and we feel like that is very productive for us in terms of their happiness and cost to society. So that's our recommendations from the committee. If you have any questions about any of the items, I'll try to answer those as they arrive.
And Mr. Kessel, again, this comes out of the 20% of the 1% sales.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yep, that is correct. Sorry, I should have mentioned that prior.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel on the grant? I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Questions for Mr. Kessel? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Grant is approved.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we're on to reports. Mr. Kessel.
Thank you. I have a few reports this evening. The first one is the United States Census Bureau. We've been contacted. It seems a little early for census, but they do start their processes early. I just wanted to kind of ask the commission in relation. There's a program called LUCA, Local Urban Census. I don't remember the exact title. The last time the census came about, entered into a partnership with Stark Development, and we hired a part-time person. Actually, Stark Development hired the individual through a contract, and the whole point was to try and educate individuals to indicate that they live in Dickinson. How you're supposed to fill out the census form is where you live, and if you live in a location the preponderance of the time, it doesn't always mean 6 months. If you've moved 3 times in a year, you may not have 6 months in one location. So it's where you live the majority of the time. And we have a lot of people who commute, who live here for a period of time, may go back for summers in that case. And what we tried to do is educate them. Students are a good example. Even though they're here for 9 months or more, they still may not indicate that Dickinson is their residence. And why is this important to us? The studies indicate that every individual has a value of about $1,500 through various federal funding, whether that's grants or other ways in which money sifts down through federal programs to us. So over the course of a decade, that's a lot of money for every person that's not counted. We did enter into that agreement with Stark Development to hire an individual. She worked part-time with the express purpose of trying to educate people to say that they're Dickinson residents. I'm not sure if that's something that the commission would like to pursue at this time. I have been in contact with Mr. Gillick from Stark Development. One of the questions that we have is it's really difficult to prove a result. I just don't know how I can bring an accountable result to you if we invest our monies in this way. Did it change people's minds? I won't be able to answer that question. Mm-hmm. So it's an investment, if you choose to make it, that would be in hopes that it would address a change. But I just can't make any guarantee. If you'd like us to pursue that, I'll have further conversations with Mr. Gillick, and I can bring a program to you to determine kind of what our thoughts are with regard to funding and where we would get our biggest bang for our buck. So I'd just like to hear what your comments are.
Any questions or concerns on this item?
Do you have a date when they would start this?
Yes, within the materials that were provided, I think there is an actual day that they physically will come to Dickinson. They'll try to do the majority of it electronically, but they do site verifications where they will have someone coming around knocking on doors and asking for a brochure to be filled out, a questionnaire. It's not the large questionnaires that they used to do of past. They've separated programs now, so this questionnaire is usually about a page, maybe a page and a half long. Doesn't take near as long. But I don't know that date specifically in my mind, Commissioner Steiner.
My thinking is each individual in a home is worth about $1,500.
Correct.
Okay. We could be at another 1,000 more people in 1 year. You know, I don't think we're gonna go down by the looks of things. I think we could go up. So if we prolong it, you know, for a future date, it might be worth it. So if they say these are the dates, I would recommend taking the,
I don't think, according to the meeting that we went to, we don't get to choose when they come.
Not when they do the site
Yeah.
verifications.
Yeah.
No, we don't get to choose that.
I believe they've already been here. I've been contacted by a Census Bureau person on a couple of my properties already.
Really? Are they verifying addresses?
Addresses, I think,
Yes,
maybe.
that is the other part of the Lucas system, is they want to verify addresses. I will tell you that we heard from the State Department of Commerce assists in this regard, assists cities. We are one of 2 cities in the state that actually had our boundaries accurate with the U.S. Census Bureau and the state of North Dakota. So it was us and Fargo. So we've been diligent in terms of trying to provide as much information as we can to them as the city staff. But nevertheless, if we can provide as much information like that, it's getting those folks that may not agree that Dickinson is their hometown right now. It's changing those minds. I don't know if we can do it, but there's a lot of dollars at stake, and I guess I'm just asking, is it worth the effort to try?
Oh, I think it's definitely worth the effort. You know, I was on the board in 2010. I think we got undercounted because of the timing of the census and the timing of population moving in here, so that's a whole lost decade of revenue. I think anything we can do to shore this up is definitely to our advantage.
I agree with Mr. Kessel that it's hard to measure. I mean, it's just
Yep,
not,
it is.
it's something we can't
Doing nothing
get a
is-
report back. But
Doing nothing is easy to
yes,
measure, though.
and,
Yeah.
but I agree with you that we need to, it might not be the same thing that we did last time.
Right.
But I think we do need to seek out some method of encouraging people to make Dickinson or Southwest North Dakota their home.
Yeah.
So,
I will get in contact with Mr. Jillick and see if we can't come up with a program, maybe
Okay.
even some options for you as a commission. I would like to mention that this isn't just a financial decision. Of course, the legislature uses this to redistrict. And this will be the first time that a great majority of new residents to Western North Dakota will be counted. So that in itself will be a really interesting result, is the population shift that's occurred within the borders of of North Dakota, and how that will affect redistricting when that occurs. So I will bring back a report then. Thank you for your direction. The next item is the LEC, or Law Enforcement Center ESG agreement. I'll try to give you some background on this. This goes back probably 10 or so years, where the City of Dickinson, Stark County, and the jail administration decided to go through an energy conservation effort. The City of Dickinson did it as well on this structure. We were evaluated, a company came in, evaluated us, said, hey, you can save this amount of money if you install these kinds of upgrades or changes in your operations. We executed that contract. The Law Enforcement Center did as well. That contract had an expense of around $600,000, if I'm not mistaken. And we split that, just about $500,000 at the LEC. We split that 3 ways between the city, the county, and the jail administration. We have obviously exited that structure and created the Public Safety Center. The discussion was, how are we going to continue with our obligation to this energy conservation effort? And the county made a request that in lieu of paying for our remaining portion, that they wanted to own the land that the Law Enforcement Center is built upon. The City of Dickinson actually owns that land, county owns the structure. So we pursued, the value of that land was over $500,000 at the time of the request, and so we weren't interested in just gifting the land for about $100,000 $150,000 that was left on the contract, we weren't willing to just give that value of land up. So we started pursuing other options with regard to a land swap. Those never materialized, and so now the county is asking that we pay for our remaining portion in full. It is my recommendation that we continue to pay our share as those bills arrive. And we have, since this letter, have become current, so we don't owe any back pay. But it is not my recommendation to pay our full $168,000, that we just continue to, we have two annual or two semi-annual payments, and we just continue in that motion of trying to pay this debt off as those bills arrive.
And this was something that was budgeted, I mean, since we've signed the contract.
We signed.
We always had this in the budget.
This was an obligation that we recognize.
This is not a unforeseen expense, is what I'm trying to say. So this is something that we had budgeted for. We had hoped to come to some other remedy, but.
Yeah, our hope was to do a land swap instead of a cash swap.
Yes.
As they requested, so.
But
Just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that situation and the result of that.
so we'll just continue to pay, and there's nothing this commission has to do.
That's my recommendation. Now, if you, as a commission, want to pay it all off, we certainly can. I don't know that there's any financial reason to do that. I think it's better off that we retain the funds in our account until they're due.
What budget line item does this come out of?
I think I would ask Ms. Carlson for that.
To answer that, I don't know at this moment, but I can sure get it for you.
Okay, I was just curious.
Was it something budgeted in law enforcement?
It used to be, yeah, it used to be in the law enforcement building. So I'm not sure where we transferred that cost, if it went to the public safety center or a different line item.
Or to the debt fund.
Right, it could have went there, yeah. The next item is the Discovery Dinners. Sorry, my calendar's a little bit wonky. It's our list and our hope that we have start our Discovery Dinners. We kind of waited until you were having several meetings with regard to the liquor license changes, and now that those are complete, we'd like to start the Discovery Dinners once again. We have a list in front of you. I think the only date that we have a conflict with is May 29th. Might be a holiday on that day. So, but the rest of them, I believe we are okay with, and we're looking at 1 hour on the topic, get you in, just have the presentation that's made, and then get you out in an hour. There may be additional invitees. In some cases, the Planning and Zoning Commission might be invited, or Civil Service, or others. But you are the one constant in terms of City Commission. So we'd really like to see your attendance. If you can't make it, please let Rita know. We will have to announce these, and just like we do a or a City Commission meeting. So we will be advertising them as such. We've chosen the topics based upon the upcoming budget process and those things that executive team thought would be most pertinent. So if you have any feedback, I'd certainly like to hear that as well. And the last item is a legislative update. As you know, the legislature has adjourned sine die, so, or sine die. The major piece of legislation that I want to update on tonight is Senate Bill 2013. This is the funding for Western North Dakota local political subdivisions. There was some fairly significant changes to that legislation prior to its adoption. I'm not sure that the cities fared well in those changes. The first change that I want to mention is on the we get reimbursed. These are in lieu of property taxes, and we participate in the gross production tax, 5% tax. There's two different buckets. There's a 1% bucket and a 5% bucket. In the 1% bucket, oil hub cities receive 9% of that total. That 9% is then divvied out to each oil hub city that's recognized in the formula. And in that side of the formula, there's only three. And it's Williston, Dickinson, and Minot. Williston gets 60% of those revenues. Dickinson gets 30% of those revenues, and Minot gets 10% of those revenues. That didn't change. What changed is there's a provision that says that if there is no oil production in any one of those counties in which an oil hub city resides, that revenue will then be dispersed evenly between the other two oil hub cities. Well, there's no concern about production in Williams County, where Williston is, or in Stark County, where we are. But in Ward County, where Minot is, there is very little oil production. So there's a possibility that that could come into play within the next 2 years. If it does, that 10% will be distributed 5% to Williston and 5% to Dickinson. So for us, that was a good amendment. On the 4% side, we get reimbursed based upon our percentage of mining employment. Currently, we're at 19%. That percentage of mining employment is expected to decrease in 2018 based upon changes that occurred in previous 18 months. We anticipate right now and have evidence to support that we may be as low as 13%. Now, I'd submit to you that in an overall economy, that's a good thing. That shows diversification and it shows strength in our economy. Because the way the state of North Dakota has chosen to reimburse local subdivisions, it's not necessarily a good thing. So we get reimbursed $375,000 per percentage point of mining employment. The good thing about 2018 funding is there's a floor of 17%. So we will not get reimbursed less than 17% in 2018. That's significant because that's potentially a 2% decline. A 2% decline equates to about $1.5 million over the course of the biennium. The other change is there is no floor in the 2019 year. So whatever our mining employment is what will be reimbursed in 2019. Job Service takes those, they took that result in June and then applied it in September. And then that is how we got reimbursed for the following year. I'll have to check and see if that changed. I don't recall that changing, but it may have. The other caveat, though, is the way that they defined an oil hub city in this side of the legislation is 1,250 population, 12,500 population, and at least a partial percentage point of mining employment. So that makes Mandan eligible, in addition to the other 3 hub cities we've covered prior. There was concern about Mandan being a hub city because there's certain legislators that don't feel that Mandan had impacts because that 2% represents the refinery employment that's within their community. So what they did is excluded the first 2% of reimbursement from all oil hub cities. So that means we had another $1.5 million hit over the course of the biennium that was removed from our funding. Then the last item that I want to share with you is there was a lot of efforts in the legislature to try and restore funding to Dickinson State University. And a lot of those efforts were fruitful. But one of the things that did happen at the end of the session is they've taken $2.5 million from our oil hub city funding and provided it to DSU. $2 million for operations and $500,000 to the digitization process. So we will not receive those dollars. It's not an optional thing for the city of Dickinson. So they'll take out $1.25 million prior to sending us any checks, and they'll just cut that check directly to Dickinson State University. When this conversation was had, I think it's important to recognize that the implication has far-reaching effects. And what I mean by that is the state, our resolution to support the TR library was based upon a commitment that the state legislature made. That has been altered and changed to the point where I don't believe that resolution is no longer active. It's no longer enforceable because of the actions that the state has taken. So I believe that that allows you as a city commission to change that resolution in support of the TR library. A $2.5 million hit to our operations coupled with the change of not recognizing 2% due to the Mandan scenario, coupled with the potential of a second-year reduction based on mining employment, makes me concerned that we'll be able to make our debt payments. I don't have any doubt about that. But I am concerned about the subsidy that's currently provided to our general fund from these revenue sources. That right now is about $3.5 million. So coupled with our debt payment of a little over 5.1, we need around $9 million, $8.5 to $9 million a year just to cover those two items. So there'll be very little, if any, funding left for projects. It'll probably be those two priorities only that we'll be able to make. And it most likely means that we'll not be able to make additional transfers to fund salaries or staff or other expenses out of the general fund from the oil revenue. So unfortunately, that's I think the reality that we have. We're happy to have funding, but unfortunately it was less than I think we expected or hoped that would result from this legislative session. It was a very difficult one. I spent a lot of time. President Decker spent a great deal of time down there as well, advocating on behalf of the City of Dickinson. I'm the vice president of the Western Dakota Energy Association. Spent a lot of time down there for them. Those are the cards that we are dealt, and we'll create a budget that takes those revenue sources into account. So
we were going down there with a number of, in our mind, of what, 22 million?
22 to 24.
And we're 22 to 24. So we're walking out with 18 to 20.
Right.
Okay.
And that's all dependent. The 1% pot depends upon price and production. I should have shared this earlier on. So the price and production numbers that are in the budget are below $50 on both years. In 2018, that number is around 47.5, I believe, and in 2019, it's a little closer to 49. And they're using production numbers that are less than 1 million barrels a day. So at current price and current production, we would exceed the revenue on the 1% side than they're budgeting. So if that holds true, we could recover some of those losses on the 4% side.
I know you feel like it's kind of a disappointment, but you know, I think going in, if we would have said if we asked 22 and get 18 or 24 and get 20, I think we'd be okay with that, especially when you consider now that we did give up $2.5 million to the university, which is a good thing for the university.
And for the City of Dickinson.
And for the City of Dickinson. So, you know, I don't think it's all that bad, but I do want to thank you and the city staff and our legislators. It was a tough session.
Absolutely.
I think you guys did a good job.
I do appreciate that, and we did spend a lot of time down there. And I don't see the investment that's being made in DSU as a negative thing at all. Our university's on the right track. Enrollment is increasing. We would be a much different community if that university wasn't present. So it's a good investment.
I think Dr. Mitchell's working hard to
Yes.
right the ship. So, and it was interesting down there. There's a lot of, I guess, optimism that the production numbers, the one meeting that we were in, they were projecting somewhere possibly being in the I think it was 1.1
Right.
million a day, which the calculation is 950, I think, or 925. So it'll, I guess, hopefully it'll work out. But we're gonna go into the budget, kind of figuring on what we have right now, not hoping for the uptick. So, yes, Mr. Kessel.
I just had one more comment with regard to the funding. Next year, they are planning to change the reimbursement so that local political subdivisions, specifically oil hub cities, do not participate in the 1% side of the GPT. And they want them all to be on the 4% side of the GPT. The intention is to hold everybody harmless when that transition gets made. So they're going to have to dedicate a higher percentage of funds in the 4% to make up for that revenue loss on the 1%. And I want to be clear that we made sure that the 2.5 that's going to the university does not impact us negatively when they consider the formulation or the formula that will be changed and utilized potentially anyways next session. That's a theoretical, it's something that both bodies would have to approve, and of course the governor. But that is their intent going in. There's a study resolution that was promoted to do exactly that, to research that subject. So just wanted to make sure we will see changes next year as well.
Is that it, reports, Mr. Kessel?
That concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Kessel before we move on? I know everybody's enthralled about buckets and 1% and 4%, so. Moving on, we'll go to the fire department, first quarter report.
Good evening, President Decker and Commissioners. This evening's first quarter report is concerning the city safety program. All departments, not just the fire departments, just happens to be under hours to present the report for you this evening. But the report does include all city departments. In 2016, we surveyed city employees for the safety program to help us identify possible shortfalls and improvements that could be made to the citywide safety program. And under training concerns, there were several items that were brought to our attention that resulted in implementation last year of an online learning management system available through Workforce Safety and Insurance that's become instrumental in helping us make sure that all employees have a resource for training, and all departments and supervisors have a resource for specific trainings also. We'll touch base on a little bit more of that in just a little bit. Under communication concerns, it came back to us that there are sometimes that items fall through the cracks, so to speak, that follow up and follow through on some safety concerns that are brought forward maybe isn't always communicated as well as it should be. So not only did we work on improving that, we worked on reevaluating the entire city safety manual, and that, as a matter of fact, has just been sent to City Attorney Kripe for her evaluation of our rough first draft of that. So what's important with this, we shared this with the city employees that are on the safety committee, and we want the employees and we want you commissioners to know when we do something like a survey, a city employee survey, it's not just a time filler. We grab those results, we get those results, we evaluate it, we tabulate it, we pay attention to what we were told, and we act on it. And that's important to the employees to know that it wasn't just some time you spent filling this out. We're really trying to improve this program. We're moving forward, we're making changes and trying to address the concerns that were brought forward to us. One of the things with the implementation of the learning management system last year, we saw some very good potential for that. It was well received by supervisors and by city employees. Well received enough that we signed on with Workforce Safety to use it as a discount program in 2017. I'm pleased to tell you that at the end of the first quarter of 2017, we met all of the goals and all of the requirements with that program to validate what we did with it, and to look at that by the end of the year, we will have accomplished what we need to accomplish with that program to hopefully realize 5%, an additional 5% premium discount on our policy. In the first quarter of 2017, there were 10 city employee incidents or injuries. 5 of those resulted in medical attention, 5 did not require. You see that also there's 3 reports of property damage. We received those reports. That's if one of the city utility vehicles, as an example, a pickup truck runs into a stop sign, or if there's another accident. It's a part of the overall program, and what's important with that piece is if it does involve a related injury. 3 of the 3 property damage reports we had in the first quarter did not have any injuries involved in them, thankfully. So again, sprains and strains leads the type of injury we have within the city, not just within the city, within all employee groups nationwide, that's the lead. One of the goals we submitted to Workforce Safety and Insurance for 2017, and there were actually 5 goals altogether, one of those goals was to significantly reduce the sprain and strain injuries. We just recently had a Safety Committee meeting, and all of the goals that we submitted to Workforce Safety for 2017 are being worked on, are being addressed. Some of them have already been accomplished, I'm pleased to say. And that ends my report.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Tebow?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
We have no reports from the police department. Moving on to engineering. First thing up is Fisher East Side Street Improvement SID, and Deputy City Administrator Carlson will be handling engineering tonight.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Bear with me. I'm going to go through this very slowly, so if there's any questions at all. As you said, Fisher East Side 2nd Street Improvement SID, as was presented in last commission meeting, there was a time for a public hearing. And so with that, we came back and to reiterate that this project installed the remaining streets in Fisher East Side 2nd, that's the 15th Avenue and 16th Avenue north of the East Business Loop. It was initially intended to be constructed with development impact fees back in 2012. So utilities were already completed with a 2012 impact fee project, and properties were assessed on a per square foot basis. Next slide, please. The assessment amounts included in your packet are based on 5-year term, and the street only costs assessed were on a per square foot basis in 2012, and this is what was also used in determining the assessments for the properties in this SID. With that, I'd be glad to answer any other questions that you might have, or that you see that in your packet that you had questions on. Other than that, the city staff and Special Assessment Commission recommend approval of the assessment amounts included in your packet for a term of 5 years or whatever you determine.
This was before the commission, our prior meeting, and we decided to table it until we had a full commission. So that if you commissioners that weren't here have any concerns, questions for Ms. Carlson. Questions, concerns?
So the 391, was that just street improvements, or was that sewer, water, and street?
That is just this, as I understand and written in your packet here, this is the street improvements.
Street improvements.
Because the infrastructure was already put in 2012.
Okay.
So basically, we're looking at 15th Avenue East and 16th Avenue East.
Yeah.
And then-
You want to go to the next slide, it shows the map. Turn the lights down a little bit, maybe.
Do you recall when Carroll Street was assessed? Were these properties assessed anything at that time?
I would maybe look to Gary, Mr. Zuroff, if he would have any comments on that, but other than that, I do not.
I don't.
Carroll Street.
I don't recall myself, but I'm just.
Commissioners, President Decker, I don't know on this one. I believe there was some discussion by a property owner in the last meeting that they had been assessed on some of Carroll Street, but I have not been involved in this project.
If I remember correctly, they were assessed separately at Carroll Street.
That's what I remember from the last commission meeting that it was stated.
So
And
they
it's-
were assessed for.
Yeah. And it's kind of in the memo
I mean,
that Loretta and the engineering department put up.
just to clarify, I was involved in the development of the stuff north of Carroll Street, so I was one of the partners in that. So I don't recall it either, but I believe that half of the street improvements and half of the sewer and water in Carroll was assessed to those properties, including Lot 1, but I don't totally remember either. And do you know 16th Avenue, that isn't connected to Carroll, but the street improvements are complete, and you're saying? I don't think there's an approach there.
On 16th Avenue East.
Yeah,
I think all of those,
I mean, I haven't been by there, but.
I haven't, I'm trying to, and then we do have the option too to change the term, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I guess, I guess that was something you can consider as a commission if you want to go 5 or 10 years. And then also, I guess I would be looking for as a motion to approve or deny the special assessment, Fisher East Side. Unless there's any more questions or.
I got a question. Did we ever answer the question that Mr. Rapp had regarding the 2 properties?
I'm not sure if anyone from the city had contacted Mr. Rapp, so.
Mr. Rapp, can you come up, please? This is why you're here, correct?
Yes, Commissioner Snyder, to see what the city's recommendation is going to be in regards to these, but to answer your question, no one reached out.
Could you just state your name for the record?
My name is Roger Rapp. I'm actually representing Corey and Jolene Holler, the owner of the property in question.
I know I had inquired, the lot number 4 had been taken off because of the existing asphalt that's there, so already, there's some existing asphalt, so.
So, Mr. Rapp, your concern was that the city, tell me your concern.
Well, the concern was basically the lot to the north that abuts Carroll Street, that a lot was assessed for street improvements at the time that property was done to the north. And, you know, our feeling and stuff too is it's already paid for those streets and stuff too. Do not believe that should be included in the 2nd special assessment district. That lot right now in total is over $70-some thousand in special assessments for streets.
Just to clarify, Mr. Rapp, so you're telling me you paid for 16th Avenue East to pave it?
That was included as part of the special assessment district for Carroll Street, yes.
No, that I know for a fact that was not included.
I've got the special assessments in front of me right now and stuff too from that assessment district, and the amount was assessed was $35,807.78.
That was just improvements on Carroll Street only.
But those streets were part of that district, and they were never taken out of that district when they weren't constructed.
Well, they wouldn't have been because you abut that street also. So you would be responsible for half of that street plus sewer and water improvements.
There's no access to Carroll off that piece of property.
But you still have access to the sewer and water, correct? And why isn't there, that's my question. Did we build these streets? I don't know.
We accepted their construction.
So then, yeah, that's my question. So who paid to pave them then? You guys did? I mean, and then.
No, I think we.
We did? I mean.
Paid, and then we collected back.
I mean, did we do the project though? Did the city take on the project and go in and pave the streets and?
Did we do the bids and all of that? I guess I don't recall that. I would refer to.
I just wonder why we didn't connect Carroll Street to 16th Avenue. That's my only question.
Oh. Public Works Director Zuroff, do you have any comments on?
As I stated, I wasn't part of this project, but I believe engineering did do the paving on this, and that's why it's being assessed. It was a city project, I believe. I don't know what the connection between 16th and Carroll. I guess I'm not sure what the question is.
Mr. President, I would like to see us table this here, and I would ask Commissioner Frederick, Mr. Zuroff, to get together, since you had some investment out there.
I was part of all the development north of Carroll Street.
Okay, yeah.
So
I don't think we're going to hash out tonight because no one can recollect, but I would recommend that I would ask.
I don't have any
you
problem
do
with
it,
that,
Mr. Zuroff, or if we need to invite Mr. Rapp in.
like I said, my question is, if we constructed the streets, why didn't we connect it to Carroll? That's what I don't understand.
Right. I'd like to include someone from engineering,
Right.
whether that's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Loretta Marshak. or-
Okay.
I want to get it done right this time, because
okay,
if it's
so-
$70,000, that's.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this till the next meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote to table this item. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners.
Thank-
Moving on.
For the next one, it's the 2017 sidewalk replacement program acceptance of the bid. And the bids were opened on April 19th. There were 4 bidders, with Wind Construction having the low bid amount of $78,005. The bidders ranged from $78,005 to $88,860. And the city's budgeted amount for 2017 is $75,000. This implements our mechanism to allow citizens to make improvements to sidewalks, curbs, and/or driveways which are within the street right-of-way through a voluntary SID process. The city engineering staff is recommending approval of this.
Any questions for Mrs. Carlson on this sidewalk replacement program? The only comment I would have is I hope more of the public take advantage of this year. I think we was badly underused or utilized last year. So,
Make a motion to accept the bid.
okay, we have a motion to approve the task order, or excuse me, approve the bid.
Second.
In a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Albans?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Bid is accepted. Moving on, Ms. Carlson?
Okay, to the 2017 mill and overlay, this is an amendment to a task order with Apex Engineering. This amendment to task order number 24 with Apex Engineering, this is for construction engineering services, provides oversight for the 2017 mill and overlay project. This work was not included in the contract with Apex for the design of the 2017 mill and overlay project. The additional services and the amount of this amendment is on an hourly basis and not to exceed the amount of $168,316 as per the original agreement. This would adjust the total task order amount to $284,035. The city engineering staff recommends approval on this.
Mrs. Carlson, do you know what we budgeted for this project? Just for the engineering? Did we separate that?
Honestly, no, I do not.
President Decker, we did, included it as part of the annual street maintenance.
Okay.
Was the mill and overlay, the seal coat, and all the other additions. And one reason, I can help you with this project, one reason we didn't include the construction engineering services was because we didn't know our full budget and how much we'd be able to mill and overlay versus seal coat. So Apex just included the design, and we thought we'd figure out the whole scope of the project and then do the construction engineering service.
But we're gonna fall within budget even
Yes.
with this? Okay.
With this and the next bid approval that
Okay.
Ms. Carlson will do, we will.
All right, I would look for a motion to either approve or deny the task order.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Any further questions or comments on this task order? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Task order is approved. 2017 Mill and Overlay Project, Mrs. Carlson.
Okay, on that one, bids for the 2017 mill and overlay project, city project number 2017-02, they were opened up on April 24th. The low and only bid was from Northern Improvement Company in the amount of $2,141,731.50. This amount is about 14% below the engineering estimated cost of $2,489,047. So with this, the city engineering staff recommends approval. And again, if you have questions, Mr. Zuroff would be great to answer that.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Zuroff or Mrs. Carlson on this bid?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Second. Oh,
All right. We have a motion to approve the mill and overlay and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Bid is accepted.
Okay, on the next one is the 2017 seal coat project acceptance. And with that, the bids for the 2017 project number 2017-01 were open April 19th, and there were 4 bids with the low bid from Morris Seal Coat and Trucking Incorporated in the amount of $496,562.09. This amount is about 57% below the engineering's estimated cost of $875,523.45. So again, with that, the city engineer staff is recommending approval on this. And if there's any questions, again, I will direct you to Mr. Zuroff.
Has Moore's done any other business in our city?
I believe they have, I haven't dealt with them, but I believe they have done projects in the state. Okay. Okay.
So the due diligence you're recommending?
Andrew, you just want to come up and just state your name and everything, and then we'll get it on record.
Yes, Andrew Strank with Highlands Engineering and Surveying. We did review their bid. It was a good bid. I did have a phone conversation with another engineer that has worked with them in Minnesota, and he gave me the okay that they were a good, reputable company, and he has not had issues with them in the past. So we did verify that they are qualified.
You stated your name, so we got that.
Andrew Strank, yes.
Thank
Just
you.
seems concerning that it's 57% less than what we come up with. So you can.
We were told that there was some other aggregate sources available this year that I think brought that number down, but yes, it was a surprisingly good bid is what we were seeing this year, so.
Sometimes that's a reflection on the engineer instead of the.
Or they like to think so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I would look for a motion to approve the bid or disapprove with a seal coat.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Next up is Community Rating System Program Admittance, and this is a report, Mrs. Carlson.
Yes, thank you, President Decker. The report on the Community Rating System Program admittance is a good thing. It's created in 1990 as an incentive to do more than the minimum required by the National Flood Insurance Program. And as you've known before, Assistant City Engineer Loretta Marshak has been working hard on this, and what it does is help the benefit of the flood insurance premium rates, so they're discounted as rewards. And we were admitted in, as of April 20th of 2017. Next slide, please. As you can see, she worked up some other community examples of communities' savings that they had, and we will be completing our submittals over the next 30 days, and in which time a rating will be given to our community. This rating will determine the amount of discount which will be applied to the flood insurance policies purchased in our community.
Great.
Nice.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Good job.
That's the end of my
Always glad to
report.
see that. So,
Yes.
all right.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Mrs. Carlson. Next up, we're moving on to Public Works, Capital Improvement, Armory Roof. Public Works Directors are off.
The Armory roof repairs have been an ongoing issue for quite a number of years with a long history. Last year, for budget in August, I got a quote from GT Architecture on replacing the entire roof and getting the building up to code. That included bringing in a fire suppression system. That was a price of probably about $500,000. That was removed at budget time. And we did come back to GT Architecture in February, and their minimum recommendations I have up are to do a new mechanically fastened EPDM membrane, replace the rotted wood siding, a full shingle replacement on that area that's shingled, regrade and rock downspouts for a total of $205,813. It would be their minimum recommendation for the Armory. Next slide, please. As I said, the original repair estimate included the fire suppression system and multiple exterior items to get the building. I'd asked them to get the building, what it would take to get the building up to code and to everything else it needed. Next slide. So With that, I did also get a estimate from GT Architecture on their price for them to run this project, and their price would be $16,375. We received that in February. I did contact them. They said that price would still be good. If we didn't want to move forward with this project, we would want to enter an agreement with GT Architecture. But before that, I guess if we include this project, budgeted and approved projects will have to be reprioritized and removed for this project to be funded. And that's where I'm at.
What specific projects are we talking? Mr. Zero?
Well, I guess currently we have a lot of projects for 2017, 2018 that have not been prioritized. We've been waiting for the funding, possible funding for next year from the legislature. We haven't finalized some of the projects we have currently with some different consultants. We have the design started, but there's still question mark whether we can proceed with construction. And those were approved in last year, but we're still waiting for where we'd be at with the funding on some of those capital projects.
I guess my concern and why I brought this up last meeting and then had it again on this meeting is the building is ours regardless of what the Guard eventually does. And I have been in contact with Guard officials today. We are eligible from the Guard to receive up to $20,000 to supplement or pay for some of these costs. And we're eligible July 1st for that. So that would offset some of the costs. As the representative said, up to $20,000. That's basically their cap, but per armory. They do go into meetings this week in Washington, D.C. Our Guard representatives will be out in Washington, D.C. They'll find out if there is a possibility of us getting a new federally funded armory. But regardless of what happens there, that's 4 or 5 years down the road, because that's how long federal projects take. So I see an immediate need with the cancellation of a couple of events that happened recently or were supposed to happen inside the armory. They had to cancel because the water was leaking in. But like I said, ultimately it is our building. We need to take care of it. Otherwise, it's just going to keep getting worse, and then at one point, it's not going to be recoverable. So,
Will the 205,000 keep the water out? That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at.
Yes, I think that will do the trick. We have in the last couple of years tried to a little bit of money here and there to try to patch.
Okay.
Also, I did want to bring up the National Guard has last couple of years that I've dealt with. There was supposed to be a grant, and that had fallen through. But yeah, that 200,000 should make it a waterproof building.
So the 200,000 plus would come out of the enterprise fund. Which enterprise fund?
I didn't say there's no enterprise. This is general fund, so I don't believe this will come out of any enterprise fund.
City cash on hand, and it's got enterprise. In parentheses, are we just talking city cash on hand, excluding enterprise fund? For the 200,000.
Yeah, the 220, according to the capital improvement plan, would come out of fund balances. So either we can use a combination of enterprise fund balances or those that exist within the sales or hospitality tax.
Okay. The other question I have, are we requiring a bond on this structure?
From the...
Well, if it leaks when it's completed and everything, are we gonna have a bond from the contractor?
I think you're alluding to what happened last time.
The word performance bond.
Yeah, I guess I would say yes.
Yeah. Now, the thing to remember is, on a performance bond, they're gonna charge it back to the,
Yep.
you know.
That would be over and above the cost that we
I think we should get a estimated cost of what that performance bond from them is gonna run. $5,000 might be some of the best money we spent. If it's $50,000, which I don't think it would be. But I think it's something we need to look into.
And I guess I don't do too many vertical projects, but, anything horizontal, we have part of our agreements with the contractors have the performance bond, and I would assume that.
If we would have had a performance bond on this one before, we'd have a new roof on a long time ago.
Well, I would agree, and maybe the gentleman that left could have stayed and informed us.
I understand. Okay, well, I think we should check into that.
Okay.
Mr. Zaroff, GT Architecture, what's the scope of their work? Are they going to design something, or, I mean, is it something that we just can't get a roofing company to come look at?
A valid question.
I think that's what's been done before, and we've done some patching, but I guess for the dollars, having the consultant GT on board to make sure it meets all the codes and everything else and to oversee the project, I would think it would be well worth it.
Isn't there?
I think we're all in agreement, we need to do this the right way this time.
Well, I agree, yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean,
There, Commissioner Frederick, there is a state law that does have a minimum requirement in terms of when we have to engage an architect or an engineer on a project, and it's a dollar threshold. I believe that threshold is 150. That the legislature moved that amount, I believe, to 200 or 250.
It was 100 years ago.
Yeah, and it hasn't moved a lot. So we may be required based upon the amount, but we'll verify that to
I
make.
mean, that'd be my only question is,
Yeah.
I mean,
Normally on the horizontal, anything over 100,000, you have to have used to be 100,000, you have to have a consultant or engineer.
150,000 excluding architectural fees.
So we're looking at about 221 total with GT, with their 16 and the 205,
Plus performance bond.
plus performance bond. So I guess I would look for, I think we have found the funding or an avenue for funding for this.
There's no doubt that there's fund balance
Okay.
available.
I just, I know I'm tired of kicking the can down the road on this one, so it needs to get done.
I move we approve the capital improvement for the Armory project.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second on Armory Roof. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Zuroff, Mr. Kessel? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
aye.
Ms. Jennings?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Would we need another motion to approve the agreement with GT Architecture then? Do you want to move forward, or do you want me to bring that back at the next meeting?
So,
President Decker, I think we should bring that back along with the
Okay.
recommendation with the performance bond.
okay,
So
I'll
that
get
you
an
can look at
updated
both.
quote.
yep, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Zuroff. Okay, nothing from Director Hadley, nothing from Official Schwint on this, Building Official Schwint. Anything from commissioners? Any concerns? Questions for city staff? Hearing nothing from the commission, I would open up the public issues of city concern not on the agenda. If you have any, please come forward, state your name, and let the commission know your city concern. Seeing no one, we'll close the public issue, and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.